JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders is part 3 of its ongoing story following our group of heroes as they attempt to subdue the evil vampire Dio Brando. However, what the story fails to explain is how young Jotaro here is only 17 years old. What the hell are they feeding this guy? And can I get some? His biceps are like the circumference of my waist. This continuation begins as Jotaro's grandfather Joseph comes to pick him up from jail, and it's here that Jotaro admits to having been possessed by an evil spirit, which just so happens to be a Stan. So what are these stands, you might ask? Well, they're basically like spirits that protect their user. They come in various shapes and sizes and also have various different abilities. Those of you who've seen part 1 and 2 may feel as if you're missing out on some key details because it seems like these stands were just pulled out of thin air, and the truth is that they were, because in parts 1 and 2, characters trained their bodies in Hamon, which was basically like a spirit wave they would use for combat, yet in part 3, they don't really use Hamon that much. It's probably used 2 or 3 times. But that's not to say that I disagree with this combat overhaul, because stands are not only 100 times more enjoyable than Hamon ever was, but they match the story's outrageous nature, allowing it to reach its full potential. Stardust Crusaders features a large cast of hilarious characters with contrasting personalities. There's that punk Jotaro who knows just how to treat a gal. His grandfather Joseph and his priceless overreactions.
Oh my god! Oh shit!
The level-headed and serious-natured Abdul. The impulsive Polnareff. And of course, Kakyoin, who is, let's just say he's cut from his own cloth. The problem which many action comedy anime face are that the jokes become so stale, that everything's stagnant because characters just only know how to be funny in one of 2 situations. Like Dragon Ball series, for example, how many food jokes are they gonna have? I don't know, how long are they gonna keep continuing the series? Because they're not gonna stop, and it's not funny. In addition to that, many of these action comedy anime lack in terms of its action and fights because it tries to take itself far too seriously when there's just nothing at stake here. And there's nothing wrong with having fights which aren't meant to be taken seriously, as we look at the first few seasons of the original Dragon Ball series, which was just gold in my opinion. And then later on in the series, when everybody keeps coming back to life and everything that could happen to any of these characters is reversible just by making a wish, there's no suspense because everybody can be wished back. And even when they can't be wished back anymore, they still come back anyways, and we still see them around. However, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, on the other hand, proves itself to be one of the greatest anime to call itself a shonen, because it has 5 characters with differing personalities which are capable of telling various different jokes, and when these characters interact with each other, it creates this combination which had me laughing almost every single episode. On top of that, this is a show where characters interact with their environment, and their environment always changes. This show seems to follow a specific formula where every other episode they travel to a new area as they're trying to find Dio Brando, and basically the 2-episode formula that they go by is episode 1 they travel to a new area and they try and squeeze as much comedy out of their new surroundings as they can with the character interaction, while within this first episode we have one of the villains that is off in a distant who's trying to either gather information or trying to assassinate them from a distance without having to show themselves by using their stand. And then the second episode is where they go face to face with this enemy for their final confrontation. And here is where these stands greatly add to the story's enjoyment factor, because there are so many different villains. There's one for every other episode, as I've said, and each of them have their own different stand with their own unique abilities, and the majority of these villains are going to have abilities which have comical side effects. Say, for example, the time when one of their villains had the power of magnetism, and they stuck Jonathan and Abdul together in the middle of the street as they're trying to separate themselves. It was hilariously awkward.
Oh my god!
And on top of that, the variety of abilities present with these stands promotes the use of strategy, because each stand will have their own strength and weakness. Say, for example, if a stand is good at ranged combat, they're probably going to be very weak against anything up close. As I spoke about fights earlier, if you're going to take them seriously, then you need to have stakes, and JoJo has their stakes, as all of their characters have their lives on the line at any time. If you've seen JoJo Part 1 or 2, then it's no secret to you that they're not afraid to kill off some of their characters here, and as this is a spoiler-free review, I'm not going to tell you who lives or dies here, because that would ruin the experience, obviously, but there are stakes here because characters do die. And that's not a spoiler. Speaking of stakes, do you think that is Jotaro's secret to being so buff at 17? How many steaks do you think this guy eats a day? It's gotta be at least 10. In addition to the action and comedy present, this show features much of the bizarre as well. As you can tell from the title, this is one hell of a bizarre adventure. One of my more memorable moments of the show, where I just had to stop for a second and think, what is going on here, is when we had this stand which kind of had the Freddy Krueger-like abilities which could go into people's dreams and kill them there. And this stand had a mask which would pour out eyeballs from behind it. It was pretty creepy. As this bizarre adventure comes to a stopping point, the tone gradually becomes much more serious and dark as they come closer to finding Dio Brando. I can't give away the specific details of the ending, but there is an issue that I have here, so I need to talk about it vaguely to some extent. There was this big dramatic battle at the end of the series, which spanned a few episodes, where it pretty much involved characters uncovering clues about an ability and trying to exploit some of its weaknesses, which was amazing because it promoted group strategy. However, my main complaint about this is that it kind of ends off with a random ability being pulled out of the air to save the day, which I don't really like. It's anticlimactic. Moving on to the presentation, there are many anime out there which just appear to be soulless adaptations, but JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders, as well as the first two parts, appear to be just a labor of love. The anime was crafted with heavy attention to detail, and they even went the extra mile by adding certain other elements, such as the mood-changing colors, which I think they change with mood, because sometimes the colors will just randomly change all of a sudden, and characters will have different color hair, and they also add special effects to the fights. They even went further to alter the opening and closing sequences in accordance to something that's happening in the story, even if it's not a major event. There are even times when the show will poke fun at itself in the way the characters are designed. Like, for example, if you look at Jotaro, his hat looks like it's fused to his head. It might be some sort of visor where it allows his hair to pop out the back, but we would never know because he never takes his hat off. It just looks like it's all one piece until the one time he did take his hat off, and it turns out that the hair hair sticking out the back of it is just part of the hat, it's all one piece. You see, it's small little touches like this which bring the show to life. And my only complaints about the presentation as far as the art and animation go is that it's sometimes inconsistent, but it's never bad. It just goes between looking amazing and just looking okay. I also found the soundtrack to be enjoyable as well, with my most memorable background music being this ambient, mysterious music that they would play during these suspenseful or mysterious moments. But of course, I also love the openings and closings as well. And opening one made me wish I could play it on Rock Band, because that was an awesome song. I watched Stardust Crusaders with its Japanese audio, and they did a phenomenal job voice acting these characters. There is no English dub, but I'm curious to see how well this would translate if we had a good dub, and I do emphasize the word good here. But some of the jokes may not translate that well because it has, like say for example, Joseph's English overreactions to everything. It's going to be hard to translate something like that. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders earns a 9 out of 10 and easily becomes one of the most rewatchable series that I've seen since Kino's Journey, which really means a lot to me because that's one of my favorite series right there. Let me know your thoughts about Stardust Crusaders in the comments section below, and who's all excited for Part 4, which comes out in a few weeks from now. I know I am. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Stay tuned for next time when I review, it's either gonna be Erased, Dimension W, White Album, or Genro, Showa Genroku, one of these anime, because I'm watching a lot of anime right now and I don't know what I'm going to finish first. So stay tuned for that. I'll see you next time.